The Ross Owen Show is sponsored by Hullmasters, Edry Trust, World War II TV and Indigo Unified Communications.
The feedback from the fans is absolutely fantastic. How does that make you guys feel?
We're very pleased about it, aren't we? We're just we knew it was a big responsibility, and we knew there was a risk involved in making this, and that with the best will in the world, you never know quite how something's going to work out when you set about it. You just try and go at a job with the best tools possible, and take it seriously, and know that try not to disappoint people and all that, and so it feels very good. It feels like. Whatever happens now, it feels like we can wipe our brow and say we did a good job.
Yeah, you know, at the end of the day, we could have recreated Laurel and Hardy, you know, try to do exactly what they did, and we could have tried to be as funny or funnier than Laurel and Hardy, but I doubt that would be as satisfying as what we've actually done, which is provided a human glimpse at these two performers. And I think that's why fans of Laurel and Hardy are responding so well to the movies, that they already have the films, we already have like their work, so that's not taken away, and we're not even trying to compete with that work. What I think people are really finding gratifying about watching the film is like seeing the beating hearts of these two men, and what were those intimate conversations like between just the two of them that nobody can know. So that's very gratifying, you know, that emotional response that people are having.
Steve, you've been known to do Stan Laurel impressions over the years. How did this one differ? Because it wasn't exactly an impression of it.
No. Well, I've done. I even think I may have done. I did Spitting Image years ago, which was puppets of famous people, and I think I may have done Stan Laurel. It was like 20. I mean, Christ, some of this stuff was like nearly 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was clearly just an impersonation. Well, of course, this was very different because although I had some idea of how he spoke, the rhythm of how he spoke, I think I'd tried to do it a few times, but of course, this was trying to get under the skin of the man, and doing a voice or doing gestures is just the sort of it's just surface stuff, you know. It really is superficial stuff. Important though it is on a technical level, it really is just scratching at the surface.
There really two characters that each of us were playing. There's Laurel and Hardy, which is their stage personas, and all the physical tics and gestures that they did to make people laugh. And then there's Stan and Ollie, the real men. When we have some glimpses of them in documentary interviews and some audio interviews, that kind of thing, but for the most part, they're somewhat mysterious. You know, they were very...
especially Ollie, because most interviews you see it was always Stan.
That's right.
Yeah. There's a couple good interviews with Oliver, but so in a way, like that, we were more concerned with showing Stan and Ollie more than showing Laurel and Hardy, because again, Laurel and Hardy are beautifully still available.
That was, I think, what was smart about it. That what we're saying about who they were is, if you like, it's very well-educated guesswork, because we take what we know and we make assumptions about that, and it's conjecture, but it's conjecture that's informed by research and diligent application, and the knowledge that there's a little bit of them in their work, and so when we see them in their private lives, we see when we see Stan and Ollie, we also see glimpses of Laurel and Hardy, because that was always there in them. And then beyond that, we know things about them, and we know about the politics between them to some extent, so we can hazard a guess about those things and how that might have manifested itself, and so that's something I think which is smart, because it's not taking away from what is already there, it's just adding to it. So we're adding to the Laurel and Hardy conversation, we're not trying to divert it or replace it.
Yeah, we're also trying to carry on the mission of their films, their overall kind of message. Yes, they wanted to make you laugh, and of course they consistently did that through their entire careers, but they always had a humanist message to their films, or at least an embrace of the foolishness of humanity. And there was a gentle and a kindness and a sympathy towards human beings that their films always had, even when they were being mean to each other or getting into terrible, messes. There was this larger kind of embrace of the human story, and our film has tried to do that in our own way. We didn't try to do it in their way. We tried to do it in our own way, but in some ways the mission is the same. Touch people, make them know you're not alone.
Yeah. We are living in. I try to draw a parallel with their work. When they were doing their shows, they were in tough times in America during the Depression, and Europe was in a very dangerous place, the rise of fascism, and yet they were doing these funny little comedies, and they're a little sanctuary from the hardships of life, was to enter into the world of their movies. And what I think we're trying to replicate in the film is a place to go and see an authentic, genuine, gentle relationship between two men, and in this cold, unstable, sort of troubling world, it should be like taking a warm bath, and enjoying the humanity that's displayed by them.
Sure. John, you had probably the most challenging prosthetics. You did the prosthetics, Steve, yeah. But I saw something online, an actor had spoken to you, and you'd given him advice about the fat suit. Do you want to share that with us? Do you know what I'm referring to here? About how you kept cool?
Oh, I thought you meant making sure you have a hole in the costume to take a pee. That was very important. I mean, the prosthetics were challenging, but not for me. I just sat there while they put glue on my face, But no, Mark Coulier and his team are, some of the best in the world at doing this kind of transformational makeup.
I think we were both a little skeptical about prosthetics and thinking it would look kind of cartoonish or trivialize things and make it look unsophisticated. I just thought, it's better not to try and look like them, but just to try and capture their essence. But I think we ended up looking pretty good.
You know what the truth is about prosthetics? Everyone makes such a big deal about the rubber. This thing. How did they build it and they sculpted it and how is it on you? But when you actually get into the makeup and you watch these guys working, the rubber is the least impressive part of it. That's one sculpture that they then take molds off of. The impressive thing every day is the custom work they're doing every day to paint that. So they're painting, they have the sophistication of like a great oil painter in terms of like what is the balance of color, and they do this speckling thing where they put a brush into color and then they flick it so little droplets are hitting you for an hour, this kind of painting like that. So the artistry involved was very impressive in that way, but ultimately, you wanted to know about the fat suit. They have this thing called a cooling suit. It was invented for surgeons, actually, who have to do long operations. It's a T-shirt that has plastic tubing going all through it and around it, and then they pump cool water through these tubes, and it cools down your core, and it allows you to keep going. So I had one of those on underneath the suit, and I'd go plug into this cooler whenever I had a chance. But yes, anyone who has to be a mascot or wear one of those.
I used to be Cyril the Squirrel. I wish I had one of those things.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know exactly.
It can get very dangerous for your health very quickly if you're not careful about staying cool.
Sure. Well, guys, I want to say
that and a pee hole.
The pee hole, very important. I want to wish you all the best with the film. On behalf of all the fans, you've done a great job, and congratulations and thanks for doing the movie.
Well, thank you, Ross. Supportive, Ross.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, I appreciate it, John. I'm with Shirley Henderson and Nina Arianda, who play Laurel and Hardy's wives, Ida and Lucille. And girls, I have to say, I watched the movie last night, and you guys almost stole the show. If there's any funny bits in that movie, it's down to you guys. How does that make you feel? I'll come to you first, Shirley.
It feels fun. It was great. That was the first I saw the film last night as well, and it was good fun. And Nina steals it. She's got some fantastic lines, so she's brilliant. We spent a lot of time together. We hung about off and on set. It was just always the two of us, and we just played around together and just got to know each other, and we were not shy of practicing and improvising and playing around with these scenes together, offset, to try and find, what is this? We wanted to make it good, and I think it became more humorous than we could even have imagined, and sharper, and then John, he let us develop little bits, add little bits, and he encouraged that, and just that combination is what you finally saw on the screen. You know, it became more than I think we had imagined.
Nina, what was your take on it? I mean, how did you enjoy making the movie, and what kind of research did you have to put into the role?
Well, luckily the research that I was given, I think from you guys actually, it was absolutely invaluable. It brought such depth to Ida, and it kind of 100% validated her ferocity and her love for her husband. And I couldn't have done that without the research. Yeah.
Now, do you have Russian blood, or because you come into this knowing she had a sort of Russian accent?
Right. No, I'm 100% Ukrainian. So the accent it's a little different, yeah, and I had to tweak it, and she spent so much time in California, so it was that kind of blend of an immigrant who has lived in the States for so long, so I was trying to make that as specific as I could.
Yeah, when we asked different people who had spoken to her what her accent was like, if she got a harsh accent or a soft accent, some said harsh, some said soft, and this one guy said, listen, I've got a phone call recorded from the 60s, you can have that, and then you can, and so was that a big help for you? That
phone call kind of, it set up the entire tone of her for me, and it was just not only her softness, but also her humor in it, and the vulnerability in it as well. And it kind of, we were able to improv certain scenes just based on how she said hello. And that was only from the recording that we heard that wasn't in the script. So without that recording, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that opened up your world, didn't it?
It did.
Her? Yeah.
It absolutely did, yeah.
Shirley, there's people in America who knew Lucille very well, and they said the same thing, that you mastered the accent. So what kind of research did you put into playing Lucille?
Just looking for a little bit of footage. I finally found a couple of clips of her. Many years later, she was an older lady at that point, talking about Oliver and her life with Oliver. So I could hear, I mean, obviously it wasn't a young voice she had at that point, but there was enough in there for me to get her sound. I thought she had quite a sweet sound. It wasn't too strong an accent, in what I could hear anyway. And just the things that she was saying about Oliver, such lovely things, that these were clues in for me to try and begin, you know, to create Lucille. So it was very, very important to find something, and so I was so grateful when I came across that.
Nina, is it difficult going into a role playing a real person as opposed to a fictional character?
It is a little more difficult. There's a little more there's fear in it because there's a responsibility to honor that person. But at the same time, you take that fear, you get as much information as you can, and then you have to allow yourself a little bit of license, because you'll never be able to obviously fully embody that person. But it's a little more difficult because there's this sense of responsibility to her, to the family, to the fans, obviously, yeah.
Now, when did you guys first see John and Steve in costume, or in makeup rather?
It was when they did, what's the song?
Wasn't it Way Out?
Trail of the Lonesome Pine?
Lonesome Pine, that's the song, yeah. We were in the auditorium. I think they'd actually asked us to be there, and that was the first Nina and I, we sat down, and then they came on the stage and just took our breaths away. I found it very moving. It was like, it was just for real, you know, and then when they did the routine, and it was just timed to perfection, just blew our minds, really. So that was the first we'd properly seen them fully kitted out.
And they didn't want us to see them in hair and makeup before that.
No.
So it was quite the experience.
Yeah, and just watching them, you know, the first couple of runs at it, and then getting more and more confident as the characters, watching them actually, there they are morphing into these people right in front of us. It was really amazing.
You met Cassidy, who's Stan Laurel's great-granddaughter. What was that like for you?
God, I mean,
I didn't know she was coming, and I don't know, I felt like seeing like a celebrity yesterday. Yeah. It was just such an honor and to have her say, I really enjoyed it, that just took my breath away.
And it's just there, I didn't even know anything about that. It makes you think, yes, these people really lived, that this really did happen. And there they are, you know, they're standing right in front of us. It was a lovely feeling.
Made me a little nervous.
Yeah.
We also had, I don't know if you know this, but last night a last minute guest came. There was Stan Laurel's great niece, was in, yeah, his nephew's daughter, so she loved it as well. She cried at the movie as well. And we had Bernard Dale Font's nephew in as well last night, who
He's brilliant.
Rufus is another one that was hilarious, and the facial expressions he was pulling,
and his hair and everything, and it
Yeah.
was like very, very funny. Yeah, but he was great. We spent a lot of time with Rufus as well. A lot of our scenes we improvised and created from, it would just say they sit down together, or they just walk into the theatre, and he was great at playing around as well.
I think they really summed it up in the trailer as well when they showed the scene where you guys walk away and Rufus says, 2 double acts for the price of one.
And he improvised that.
Yeah,
Did he?
Yeah,
That's a
all
great
up.
line, isn't
Yeah,
it? Such a
yeah,
great line.
yeah.
So overall, a lot of great vibes from the Laurel and Hardy community, which I think is important to you guys, isn't it?
Very.
Very,
That
yeah.
means the world to us. Yeah.
Yeah, because you want to do the best you can. You want to be honourable to the past, and bring something that will work today as well, that is accessible today. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that's worked.
And to honor the relationship that the fans have with
Yeah.
Stan and Ollie is also very important to us,
Yeah.
because there's such a love from the
Yeah.
community
Absolutely.
that for us it's very important to honor them.
Yeah.
Just to finish off, favourite scenes to shoot. Do you have a favourite scene from the movie?
There's different ones. I mean, I actually loved the dinner scene in the end when you and I got that. We got that. I think that's where we found what we were playing, what we were trying to do. It was very sharp and very. It was a difficult scene to film, but I think we found something. Nina and I found something between us, what our rhythm was. So we had good fun doing that. And individually, I think I liked the scene with John when we were just lying on bed together, just like cuddling into each other. That was to me, that was like way the levels underneath all the showmanship, deep down with the heart. That was the tenderness that we're looking for.
And what about you, Nina?
I actually really had so much fun with us struggling in the theater to get to our seats, and
That's right.
and the kind of the physicality of
That's right.
moving the seats and anything you guys threw at me, it was kind of
That's right.
actor candy
That's
for
right.
me. And the other one was the moment you mentioned at the end. That was a very special moment
Yeah.
for me with you.
That's right.
And I'll never forget that day that we shot that.
That's
That was
right.
very very special for
That's
me.
right. Yeah.
I don't want to give it away.
There's too many. They've all got something in them,
Sure.
really.
Well, the movie comes out in theatres January 11th. Everybody's looking forward to it. We're all excited. Thanks to you guys for giving us your time today, and best of luck with the movie.
You're welcome.
Thank you so
Lovely.
much.
Thanks
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
So I'm with director John S. Baird. How you doing, John?
Very well, Ross. Very good to see you after yesterday's celebrations. Yeah.
Are you pleased with the feedback you're getting so far? Even from the trailer alone, lots of people saying it's very emotional.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, you do these things because you want people to see them or you want people to experience them. And, when you get positive feedback, it's always great, And the trailer has gone down really well. And first of all, big thank you to yourself for the amount of promotion that you do, and how you get behind this film. So thank you very much for doing that, because if it wasn't for the likes of yourself, it would be a lot harder. But I'm very, very, very pleased with the response so far.
First of all, it's an absolute pleasure. It's just fantastic to be involved, and I appreciate you asking me as well.
No problem.
Now, let's talk about how it first came about, because you are a Laurel and Hardy fan. In fact, what's very appealing about this movie is basically most of the cast and crew are all Laurel and Hardy fans anyway. It's a big labour of love.
Yeah.
But how did you get brought into it, and tell us how it all came about?
Well, I had done a movie called Filth about 4 or 5 years ago, and Jeff Pope, who was a writer of the Stan and Ollie film, he'd done a film called Philomena, and they came out around about the same time, and we had been at different functions and gatherings at the same time, and we got talking, and he sent me the script, and I just fell in love with the idea of doing a film about Laurel and Hardy, and very much like yourself, had wondered why on earth people, someone hadn't done it before. But I have been, I've been a fan of Laurel and Hardy since I was 8 years old. There's a very sort of embarrassing but a slightly cute photograph of me dressed as Stan Laurel at the school fancy dress day, and a mate of mine is Oliver Hardy. So
A true fan then?
yeah, Love Affair has gone back, for almost 40 years. But with the actual film itself, Jeff sent me the script, and originally it was a TV movie script, so it had to be developed up into a feature film. and we had to find the right cast and get the right financer and stuff. So it was a big undertaking, but you know, here we are 4 years later, and we premiered last night. So it's been very enjoyable, you know. And you've been there from the beginning as well, you know. So you've seen how long it's taken, and you've been very patient as well, because, you know, like a lot of fans can get very impatient. Well, when's it happening? Is it going to happen? Is it really going to happen? You know, but are they going to do it right? You know. And I'm sure you've fielded a lot of concerns from people out there who are worried that we haven't done them justice. But hopefully we have.
I have to say, I'll tell you now, the general feedback from the trailer alone has been absolutely incredible. Okay. So many people had that point of view where they don't like biopics. And I know this isn't directly a biopic, it's only about this 1953 tour. There is a little bit of dramatic licence. Yeah. And I have to say, there is a little bit of dramatic licence. Yeah. What reservations did you have? Because when I was talking to the girls, there's that saying, if you're going to play an icon, you've got to get it right or the fans will come down on you, you know, like a ton of bricks. Did you feel a lot of pressure in that sense?
I think we all felt a lot of pressure, you know. And on the day one on set, we got all the actors and all the crew on stage. We were actually in a theatre doing one of the theatre scenes. We got them all on stage, and I said, listen guys, the big word here is responsibility, and we've all got a responsibility to Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy to make sure that this does them justice, you know. And that's all I needed to say. And we had 39 days shooting, and every day they came with that responsibility and that ethic, work ethic. You know, whether it was Steve or John or the cinematographer or production designer, they came with that responsibility and that love for these two guys. And we just wouldn't have had anybody involved if they didn't have that. If I thought people were getting involved just for a, you know, just for the money or just for another job, they wouldn't have been on this show. But you know, the biggest judge for me for the film is Cassidy Cook, Stan's great granddaughter. And my feeling is, if Cassidy likes it and she thinks it works, then it doesn't matter about anybody else. Matters. You know, that's the living, breathing relative. And she's been very positive, and she loves the film, and you know, we're very fortunate to have her here in London. So, but as you say, big responsibility. Now
let's talk about the casting. Who did you bring into this? Did you have any say in the casting, or was it written, these are the two guys we want to play Laurel and Hardy, or how did that work?
No, I think as a director, you have to have, you know, the final say over the casting, and you know, or else it's not worth getting involved in the job, you know. So yeah, it's up to you. I mean, you're pulling all the departments together, whether it's cinematography or production design or costume or makeup. You have the final say on everything. They run everything past you, whether it's, is he wearing blue socks or red socks today? You know, literally, you have to sign off on everything. Right. So the casting, yeah, it was our first choices, Steve and John. I met Steve for dinner, and we had a very serious conversation. And halfway through it, he, without being prompted or without any warning, he dropped his napkin on the floor and bent down to pick it up, and then bashed his head on the table on the way up and went into, you know, purposefully went into Stan Laurel, and the shivers just went up my spine. You know, I thought, oh my God, this is incredible. And John said something very poignant to me when I spoke to him. First of all, he said it's a frightening prospect playing Oliver Hardy, but it's even more frightening the thought of someone else playing him. So, and I thought, oh my God, that is an incredible thing to say. Very much. You know, and so I knew how responsible these two were.
They do have a lot of similar backgrounds as well, with Steve being from up north and John's history as well, and yeah, you know, entertainment as well.
Yeah, and I think that helps. I mean,
and again, both are big fans as well.
Yeah, both huge fans. I mean, I think, you know, it's been documented how many comedians use Stan and Ollie as their big reference. You know, you know, you ask most comedians who are up there in the top three, in the top one. Yeah. But I read something really interesting yesterday in The Independent, and it was an article about Stan and Ollie, and it was really about Stan actually, and it said that at Stan's funeral, Buster Keaton stood up to do a speech, and he said that, you know, people thought that me and Chaplin were the geniuses. He said, but we weren't. It was Stan Laurel that was the genius, you know.
That's absolutely true, but Stan Laurel also said, Stan said, my name shouldn't be in the same sentence as Charlie Chaplin. So he equally paid tribute to Chaplin, and as you know, Chaplin was Chaplin's understudy in the early days. They were friends.
Yeah. I had an incredible experience, Ross. I don't know if I ever told you about this. On a flight, I was flying to LA to do the music for this, and sitting next to this young lady who got chatting to, and she was basically asking me what I was doing in LA, and I said, I'm going to be working on a film about Laurel and Hardy, and I didn't think she knew who Laurel and Hardy was, so I went into a big explanation about Laurel and Hardy, and basically she was quite interested in who this was, and I thought, it's good. So I asked her, you know, what she did, and she said, I do a little bit of acting, and anyway, it turned out she had done quite a lot of acting, and she'd been in Game of Thrones, and she'd been in she'd been in the new James Cameron film, and so we chatted, and at the end of the flight, when I'd had too much red wine, we exchanged details, but all the way through the flight, very interested in this Laurel and Hardy film. And we exchanged details, and her name was Una, and I said, Una, can I have your surname, please, for my thing? She said, oh yeah, it's Chaplin, and Una Chaplin, yeah. And I just started laughing. I said, oh my God, I said, I've spent the whole flight explaining who Laurel and Hardy was, and Stan Laurel was your grandfather's understudy, and she laughed, and it was incredible. I told Cassidy this story yesterday, and she's dying to meet Una, you know. But yeah, Stan did love Charlie Chaplin. Yeah, he did. I think the difference between Chaplin and Keaton and Laurel was the fact that, you know, you can see the real technicality with Chaplin and Keaton, yeah. But you can't see it with Stan because it was a more human. Mm-hmm. You know, it was a more human form of comedy, and it's and I think that's even more difficult to do. You know, so I think Laurel was the genius. You know,
everybody could relate to Laurel and Hardy. You know, we all know a Laurel and Hardy, and I think, you know, they did stand out from other double acts of that era, yeah. And that's why they successfully, I think, made that transition from silence to comedy as well.
Can you think? I mean, I've often thought about this. Has there been any other actor, regardless if it's comedy or serious drama, who made such a successful transition, and who was as successful, if not more successful, when they transferred from silent to talkies? I can't think of anybody who did it. No. You know, and I don't think that's talked enough about. I don't think that's talked enough about the way they did that. You know, because it's a huge thing.
It really is, yeah. You know, I mean, when you think about Harold Lloyd and Buster Keaton, and Chaplin even, they did do sound movies, but they were never as successful.
No, I mean, absolutely not. Absolutely not. When you think about the Laurel and Hardy movies, and how big their talkies were, bigger, right, than the silent stuff.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
And I think that, I just don't think anybody compares to them.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So. Now, my final question to you would be, still on the subject of casting, the girls. I don't want to give too much away. The film comes out in January, but the girls, it is a drama, but the girls put a lot of humour into it. I thought they were brilliant. You've worked with Shirley, obviously, on Filth. Yeah. You obviously casted Nina as well, who mastered the accent. She's got Edith's accent down to a T. Mm-hmm. How did you go about the casting process for the girls? So,
as you say, I've worked with Shirley before. We were looking for an American actor to play Lucille, but John Reilly had said, look, I've worked with Shirley before. I think she's one of the best actors I've ever worked with. I want her to be Lucille. And I was like, I'm totally fine with it. And Shirley went, you know, God bless her, went on tape and you know, did the sort of audition and convinced everybody. With Nina, I was dead set on getting someone of Slavic descent to play Ida. Yeah, it had to be someone.
Good move.
Yeah, it had to be someone who could understand the tough kind of love that these people have, you know. And Nina's parents are from Ukraine, and so she completely got it. Totally. And to be honest, really added to that part. You know, a lot of the humour that comes from their characters, they wrote themselves. You know, so Yeah, they were just wonderful. They were absolutely wonderful. And I'd work with them again in a heartbeat.
And that great line from Rufus, 2 double acts for the price of one.
Brilliant
Brilliant line.
Price of one, you know, and that's exactly what it is. That's
Yeah.
exactly what it is. The film really comes to life when the wives arrive and what they interject to it as well. And as I said yesterday at the beginning of the premiere speech, you know, I was very blessed with the cast. Very blessed.
Well, John, I regard myself as being a die-hard fan, and I just want to thank you for taking on the project, and you should be very proud. Everybody should be very proud. You have done a great job, and we are very grateful that you have put so much thought and detail and cared, you know, about the fans and the family.
Well, I have to thank you again. Thank you for all your support, and it's a pleasure getting to know you.
Thanks again, John Baird. So my next guest is Cassidy Cook, great-granddaughter of the one and only Stan Laurel. How does it feel to be here in London? Is it your first time here?
It's not my first time here. I came originally when I was 12 years old with my grandmother, and I've been a few years back, and now this is probably the first time in 5 years that I've been back.
Now, you've come here for a very special reason. You've come to see Stan and Ollie, the movie. I think it's been very important to everybody that you got to see the film and they wanted to find out what you thought of the film. So now that you've seen it, what do you think?
I think it's a beautiful love story about friendship. You know, it's obviously a drama, but it's got every little bit that we could have hoped for to really show how brilliant and witty my great-grandfather was, the relationship that he had with Babe over the years. You know, I really think it's just a beautiful story. I think Lois would have loved the film. I think that it was always important to her that the boys be portrayed in a good light, and that, you know, most importantly, this film brings a whole new generation of potential fans and admirers to understand who they were and what they have done for, you know, comedy and, you know, just theater in general.
And I think the message we're all trying to get across and with the film is to try and introduce the next generation to Laurel and Hardy. And I think that this movie will do that. The trailer alone the response has been great. People are saying they've been crying at the trailer. How did it affect you emotionally, this movie?
You know, I laughed. I did cry in a few bits, but overall, I'm just so grateful to see them up on screen. It's been a long time coming, and Jeff Pope did a beautiful job to really make sure that he portrayed, like I said, my grandfather in a light that the world really didn't know about. They didn't know that he was a writer. They didn't know he was a director, in addition to being an actor. And he always wrote content that made Babe the star, and he kind of supported it and played the daft one. But that's kind of a backstory that not many people knew, and so I'm really grateful that he brought that through to the big screen.
What did you think of the amazing prosthetics on John C. Reilly particularly?
Yeah, that was incredible. You know, I think that both actors really took on the part of Stan and Ollie, from their voices to their mannerisms. Just really incredible job.
Now, there is a lot of die-hard fans out there who are just as protective as the family are about getting the story right. Now, in every movie there's always a little bit of dramatic license, and some of the feedback that we have been getting, a lot of people saying Laurel and Hardy never had an argument. Now, we weren't there. 30 years, 40 years, whoever, anybody who is friends, your best friend, for instance, I'm sure you've had an argument with your best friend, or members of your family, we've all done it. Do you believe that they never actually had a single disagreement in all the time they were together?
You know, my grandmother always did say that they were so close and the best of friends, and that they did hang out on weekends, but their friendship was a very long time. And I would agree that, you know, in any relationship, whether it be a marriage or a friendship, that at some point you do have a disagreement or somebody could hurt your feelings. And I think that, again, Jeff did a good job of, yeah, they had an disagreement, but he brought it circled back around to the fact that, you know, neither one of them really meant what they said, and that they really did love each other, you know, and were the best of friends.
What's next for you, and what's your involvement now with the Laurel estate? Are you going to be doing anything in the future with regards to the memory of Laurel and Hardy?
Yeah, so I don't know, many people have heard about the archives and the books and the legacy that my grandmother had that had been passed down to her from her father. And it was always her intent to publish them. And sadly, Grandpa Tony and her were working on that, and then he passed away. And so it just never came to fruition. So what I've done at this point, and it seems like I've got support from Jeff and, possibly other people that work at E1 and Fable Films, to get those out to the fans and to make them so that people can actually have their own copy. So we are working on that. We just have to figure out exactly how to do it and find the right people to, get it out there.
That's great news, and the fans will be delighted to hear that. What's your most prized possession of Stan's?
I would have to say, and my son was wearing it last night, but his watch, his cocktail ring, and his money clip. That's something to me that, really holds energy and value. And every time I wear it, I just feel so much more confident. And, you really get a sense of, I don't know. I believe in energy. And when I put on his jewelry, or when I look at his pictures, or when I read his content, I really start to understand who he was and how he truly loved his work. That was his true love. As you know, he had many wives, but his true love was his work.
Now, what's people's normal reaction when you tell them who you are? When you say Stan Laurel was your great-grandfather, are they take like total shock? Or what's the reaction generally like?
Yeah, most people just kind of stare at me and don't know how to react. Not that I go around telling people, but
when it comes up.
Yeah, when it comes up, it's definitely, they've just got this faint look on them. They just can't believe it, And I mean, I'm just so grateful to have been born in such a legacy of family. Not only my great-grandfather, but my grandfather. As you know, we're both in many pictures, and for me, there's a huge responsibility to maintain, their character and just to continue the legacy of giving back to people, because that's truly who my great-grandfather was. As you know, he was published in the phone book, and to the writer or actor, he really wanted to see people thrive and live their dreams and their passion like he did.
Like the rest of us, I'm sure you wish you could have met him.
That would have been really cool. I have a lot of questions myself, but I do feel like I did know him in some respect, because I took care of Grandma for 15 years, and she shared a lot of her stories and a lot of the information. And, she always said he was a lovely, lovely man, and that he was just super kind and generous, and, he would have done anything for anybody. And I think the movie does show that, how much he did love, his wife. He loved his partner. He loved his job. There was a lot of love that came out of him.
What would you say to fans out there who are still on the fence about whether or not, because some people are against biopics in general, some people just don't like biographical movies. What would you say to the fans out there? Should they go and see this movie?
I think they should go see the movie, and again, I believe that this movie is going to open a whole new generation of fans, and then if they have questions, they can do their own research, and there's plenty of content out there that they can make their own decision.
Thank you so much for spending the time with us today. I really hope you've enjoyed your trip to London, and I hope to see you on the other side sometime next time I'm in California. Thanks again.
Yeah, thanks, Ross. Appreciate it.
The Ross Owen Show is sponsored by Hullmasters, Edry Trust, World War II TV and Indigo Unified Communication.